All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, episode 42 of the best podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. I'm Christian Brindle, joined with my co-host, Glen Shelton. And we got a doozy of a show for you today, ladies and gentlemen. First off, Glen, you came in shaking this morning from your ice bath.
Yes.
How was said ice bath?
'Twas good. 'Twas very good. I had some lower back pain yesterday, so I was like craving it today. I just wanted it because I'm an old man. I think I did something at the gym, to be honest. I think I did something at the gym. I tweaked my lower back. I was doing that thing yesterday where I'm like walking around like a robot because I'm trying not to that. I know you're old like me, right? So you tweak your back. You're walking around like the Tin Man because you're like, I'm not gonna put anything on my back. I had to take ibuprofen to go to bed last night, and then this morning all I could think about was like, I need to get an ice. So and right now it feels good. Feels good. How long will it keep the pain away? I don't know. Stay tuned, but I'm cold. Christian's doing an ice room today, guys. He's taking a different approach. ESI headquarters is AKA the North Pole today.
Yes.
So we might see Santa Claus on today's pod. Reindeer, I don't know. Stay tuned though. It's gonna be interesting. Christian, what's going on at ESI headquarters? Tell the people. Tell the people.
So this morning, it's actually gone on for, this is day 2 of the heat not working here in winter. So it's relatively cold. I went in my office. The thermostat said when I walked in this morning to my personal office, said 50 degrees.
That's cold. That's very cold.
So, we're trying to get somebody out. We tried to get somebody out yesterday to come look at it. They weren't available to come till today. And I proceeded to tell them horse shit. No, just. Do
you have a space heater? Are there space heaters there?
No.
No space heater.
We needed a space heater, but actually, no, maybe we do. I think we did try one that's happened years ago in a ESI headquarters, back then CBIS headquarters.
ESI HQ. I need a t-shirt. ESI HQ. Guys, I do want to make a mention here early on the pod. I feel like if I say it enough, you guys will start to see the pattern here. We are doing Freebie Friday. Every Friday, we are going to take those who commented on the live streams in the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. Obviously, this podcast is available all over the place. Anywhere you can listen to a podcast, you can find the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. You can find us on YouTube. We're streaming on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. But in the Facebook group specifically, anybody who comments on the live stream, whether you're commenting live or on the replay, we're going to take everyone who commented, put you into our raffle on Friday. It's our Freebie Friday raffle. And you enter for a chance to win. Last week, we gave away 30 turning 65 leads to 10 to 3 different people. So I don't know exactly what we're giving away yet this week, but comment below if you have a question about anything we're discussing. We'd love to interact with you, get back to you. Even if we don't get to it live on air, we'll try to respond to you once we get off the pod. But excited to jump into today's episode. Our first topic today, you guys, we wanted to talk about virtual assistants. And I think what's always most interesting, I've been working with virtual assistants for over 10 years personally. So I'm so ingratiated with this topic that when I come across someone who's new and they haven't worked with a virtual assistant before, it's always tough because I'm so deep that when it's like, well, I don't, what is a virtual assistant? It's like, how do you not know what a virtual assistant is? Like, it's almost tough for me to come back to the surface. So Christian, maybe you could be the surface level person and give us some perspective here for the newbies who might be listening or watching this. What do you think is is the big, I guess the thing is like, what do you think is the biggest barrier that you see from those who've never worked with a virtual assistant before? They don't know what a virtual assistant is. What do you think that barrier is?
Well, I think it's, there's a couple, right? We talked recently on the podcast about individuals that have a fear of letting go of various things in your business. So it kind of almost compounds into this overall fear of having any type of assistance, whether it's virtual or in person, right? So that's certainly part of it. But I think in addition to that, you have individuals that, you have the people that that think this way. Um, a lot of times virtual assistants are outsourced. A lot of times they're overseas, they're in other countries. And there is a genuine fear, I think, from some people of working with someone that's out of the country, right? Whether it's language barrier, maybe they're not capable to do the job,
Right.
maybe they're not ethical, right? Maybe like,
Sure.
they try to scam you in some kind of way, right? Like, by the way, not to say that that's not a reasonable concern. That's why we don't recommend typically going
Yeah,
off rogue and trying to find your own virtual assistant. It can get a little sketchy and a little hairy if you
for
don't know what
sure.
you're looking for. Um, but I think it's a combination of those things, if I'm being honest with you.
I love all of that. I think there's a lot to unpack there. And I think what's interesting too is everything that was mentioned right there as far as hiring a virtual assistant. I think you can potentially run into a lot of those things here stateside too when you're hiring someone. Like you can hire a virtual employee who works remote, whether they're remote here in the US or they're remote overseas, the Philippines, India, Egypt, wherever. You can hire someone that's an incredible employee, or you can hire someone that's a horrible employee. A lot of these things are applicable, stateside, in person, virtual, remote. It's more interlinked, I think, than a lot of people understand. Sometimes you get someone who is a great employee, or they're not going to be a great employee. But I do think something Christian mentioned there too is important. If you don't know what you're looking for, if you've never done it before, if you are, I know people who've told me they've gone on Craigslist and they've hired people overseas off Craigslist virtually. I'm like, man, that sounds like a grab bag of who knows what you're getting there. It's like a garage sale. It's like, I don't know. So I think having some structure coming into it is big. But we had a comment in the group too. I wanted to mention here. She bought leads from Lead Heroes. And this agent was concerned because they came into it with that mentality of, remote workers, Filipinos making phone calls, and we've all had bad experiences too with telemarketers, people who've called us that we didn't know. And it's like, what are you saying? Who is this? Or you've called a business and it's really bad, so I understand that perspective. But it was interesting to see that she came into the experience with that idea, but then saw that it actually worked really well, that the skill of the labor force that we have at Lead Heroes was above par, above her expectations. So again, it kind of goes back to that idea of like, you can have bad employees or you can have great employees. And whether that's remote or in person, stateside or overseas, it's kind of, you have to kind of figure out what level you're going to train to or hire for,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you've said it really well in the past, and I'm just going to not reinvent the wheel with it. People have the expectation, whether it's a virtual assistant or just any type of person that they're working with, that, it's like they come ready out of the box. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the reality is, I think anytime you hire anyone into your business, you need to teach them, train them, continuously work with them. And over time, if they're the right person, they will really start to get it right. Things will start to click, in terms of like doing their job and just really alleviating a lot of things off of your plate as the business owner, so you can focus on other things, right, that are more applicable to the business growing.
Yep.
But a lot of people just don't have that patience, right? And usually it's people that have never hired anybody. I find I don't know if you have that same kind of
Yeah.
experience, but like usually it's people that they'll work with a virtual assistant and they're like, the second day they're like, this isn't working. It's like, why?
Yep.
It's like, oh, because I gave them this task to do and they couldn't do it. I'm like, well, do they know anything about your business? Did you train them on
Right.
anything?
Right.
Like, no, why would I train them? It's like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and so
Why would I train them?
why would I? Why? What is that? No one trained me. You're like, clearly, I can tell by this conversation. But no, I think that's a general misconception is like that they're anything different than anybody that you might hire stateside. They're just people, right? And
Yeah.
so people need to be trained. They need systems, processes, organizations, things like that, and at times direction on what they should be doing. But I think if you go into it understanding that, it can be not only a really, really useful way, but also in a very affordable way to get help for your business. A lot of people that we talk to that are agents, they just don't have the funds to hire somebody stateside. I was talking to one of our agents in California recently.
Yeah. Oh,
and they're
man,
like,
California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like,
that's one of the doozies.
and what really stuck out to me, there was, we were talking about this, and he was like, I really need help. And, I don't know what to do. And, virtual assistant conversation came up because, he was like, to be competitive, I've done some research. I'd probably have to start someone at 25 or 30 an hour in California.
Yeah.
Because McDonald's out there is starting at 20 an hour.
Right. Right.
So like,
15-year-olds, 15, 16-year-olds are making $20 an hour, that's what really blows my mind. Kids are making that much money. I would have killed to make that much money when I was a kid. I'm like, what is going on?
But it all balances out, right? Because it's one of those things where it's like, cost of living's higher, your rent's higher, food is higher.
Right.
So like, doesn't really last very long in comparison to anything, in a place like California. But I say that to say, right, like, there's a lot of people that, that run a business that need help, that probably can't afford, to hire someone at a reasonable salary in the stateside. So virtual assistants is a really, really good alternative to that. And sometimes you can just get people that are phenomenal. These phenomenal people. We work with so many, virtual assistants. We had two of our virtual assistants the other day, dropping memes in our group chat, dropping pictures of themselves, and it's like Chris Hemsworth and things like that. I'm like, I love these young men. You know what I mean? While they're killing their respective jobs.
Yeah, and you might see them in the Facebook. There's times when we need them in the group, you guys, to either comment, or if we're busy, we'll tag one of our virtual assistants in the group to help you guys. I mean, you'll see it firsthand. I love the cost of labor topic, because I think that's such a huge selling point for working with a virtual assistant. California is its own beast. So I think California is maybe a little more inflated than other parts of the country. But even in places, I just recently, not too long ago, I talked to an agent, I think it was like in Wisconsin, and they were seeing a very similar issue where they really wanted to hire someone to come work in their office, but they were looking at probably starting at $25 an hour just to get an admin level person in to do front desk type work, answering the phone, answering emails, data entry, CRM management, stuff that, it's tough because just 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, that same type of labor would have been so much cheaper. And we've seen this inflation happen here in the US. So cost of labor has gone up. And it seems like the labor force, the options seem to have also kind of gone down. So it's gotten really tough out there. And depending on your job market, some people have some better job markets than others, I've realized too, having these conversations. But there's a lot of cities across the US where there's not a ton of options and the cost of labor has gone up. And if you're a small business owner, you're an agency owner, you're an independent agent, it's tough to maybe cash flow that employee, even if you will get an ROI down the road.
Yeah.
This also kind of ties back. We did a really great podcast last week about, what did it take to go from 6 figures to 7 figures? And we're kind of covering some of the same stuff where it's like, well, how can you let go of some of these tasks? How can you focus on the big picture, the big ticket items? And a virtual assistant's a really great way of plugging someone in, not breaking the bank on the cash flow. And now you can really focus on those big ticket items.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could probably do an hour pod about this topic
probably
alone. Probably should. This does remind me that for those of you that aren't aware, tomorrow, so we're recording this episode 42 on January 21st, January 22nd, tomorrow, we're going to be doing a free webinar where we teach how we're using virtual assistants internally inside of our business, inside of the agency, to really help propel exponential growth. And so, definitely RSVP for that. Make sure that you, are on that. And if you're not sure how to get on it, if you're in the Facebook group and you're watching, it's pinned everywhere. Just search for it on the events. If you're on any other platform, reach out to us. Drop a comment if you're on a platform that allows you to do so, and we'll make sure that we get you on. So,
yes.
That probably positions a little nicely into this episode's sponsor, which is Hire Heroes. Glenn, talk about Hire Heroes for the people.
Yes, if you have not heard about Hire Heroes is a virtual assistant staffing service that finds and uses curated executive level virtual assistants. These are folks who have been vetted, who have a background check, they have work history that we've been working with, that it can be essentially, like Christian mentioned, plug and play into your agency. I highly recommend, if you are looking for a virtual assistant to help handle these low revenue or no revenue generating tasks, a lot of which we just mentioned here on the pod, check out hireheroes.com. That's HIREHEROES, hireheroes.com. And on the webinar tomorrow, which we'll hopefully get a replay out to you guys on that. But again, if you're attending live, what I can guarantee you is we will have a gift for you guys, something special. So I highly recommend getting on that webinar tomorrow, because I can't guarantee you'll get that same type of offer down the road. And yeah, we'll get the link to that webinar dropped below this episode on the podcast. But yes, that's hireheroes.com, HIREHEROES, Hire Heroes.
All right, let's shift gears and transition into our main topic of this episode, and that's branding and attracting business to you. Right? I think when agents hear this talked about, they almost look at it kind of as like a cliche. It's like a fairy tale, like a pipe dream. But it is very real. Not only have I seen it work in lots of different agencies, but we've done it internally. Over a decade, we've developed fantastic branding that has brought in a lot of business, either from existing clients, referral partners, other agents are great referral partners. I saw someone the other day. I can't even remember where I saw it, but it was like I think it was on a post somewhere.
Yeah.
In a various insurance agent community. And someone was like, I would never get referrals from other agents. They're my, they're my enemies. I don't want their referrals. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, you're dumb then. Because there's all kinds of situations where like agents will refer other business to us, and that And part of the reason for that is because, we're so well known in the agent community. We're licensed in so many places, but a lot of times it's a client of theirs that might be moving here and they don't want to bother to pick up a license in Utah just for one client. That's debatable.
All the time.
Right?
Yeah. All the
if
time.
You should or shouldn't. But like, we know, we've forgotten more than you're ever going to know about this market, right? So you send it off to us, we pay your referral fee. There's tons of agents that do that, but also in other states that maybe they just don't want to get in that we might be in, right? Yep. We get a lot of referrals every year from those types of situations. And so we're building referrals partners and referral channels is certainly branding and attracting business to you, but there's a lot more to it than that. Glenn, when you think about branding that brings in business over a long period of time, what is it that you think about first?
In this space specifically, I feel like repetition is so important. Being in the niche and then, delivering quality service to Medicare beneficiaries. What I've seen happen time and time again over years of working with agencies is that just by that repetition of being known in the community, being known that, hey, you help someone with get their Medicare policy, you make sure they know that, hey, if you know anyone who needs help, send them my way. Here's our phone number. Here's our website. Let them know that we can help them. That one conversation might not yield anything. In fact, a lot of times it won't. But having that same conversation, or your agents, right? If it's not, if you're an agency owner, you have several agents, those conversations start to have this compounding effect over time. Something as simple as asking for a referral at the end of a transaction. And all of a sudden, after a few years of doing that, your phone's ringing off the hook, especially maybe during AEP, right? When everyone's scrambling to get help. So for me, a lot of this, attracting business to you is just being super consistent. You're answering the phone when it rings. You're asking for referrals on a regular basis. That to me, it's the little things a lot of times, that'll get you that win. A lot of people are looking for that shortcut. They want to hit a home run on the first pitch, and a lot of times it's not that at all. It's just that slow grind of playing the game and building. When I think of like a really successful brand like Nike or, Amazon, I mean, any big company that I guess I'm wearing Nike. That's why I thought of it. But any big brand, right? There has been a slow grind of building that over year, brick on brick, slowly building to the point that, oh yeah, everyone knows. You see the swoosh. Everybody knows what that is, So that's kind of what I think of that's like that first thought I have when I'm thinking of like building a brand, attracting people to your company. It's doing those things right, being super consistent, good communication.
Yeah, I think all of that is a very big piece of it. I also think it's a willingness. I think if there's two things that I really think of strongly when I think of branding, is it's a willingness to promote your brand and put it out there. So many people just seem so timid, I guess, when about the idea of that. It's almost like they're like, well, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to make a fool of myself. Make a fool of yourself. I've made a fool of myself so many times, as some of you might attest to if you've been a follower of mine for many years. And I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. And I don't stop promoting my businesses because I understand that attention is king, and I understand that familiarity is king. Those two things. And so I think promotion, number one. I think number two, kind of like what Glenn said as well, having a very strong customer experience, because then word of mouth spreads. That's always positive as well. People leave you positive reviews. All of those things compound, but on top of that, there's only so much you can do with a word of mouth spreading. In my opinion, I think it's great. I think it's like a wildfire and it can spread. But I also think the businesses that are branding themselves the best are actively and putting things out there to engage and push their branding, so that way there's familiarity. Human psychology tells us that people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? Know is the first one. They have to know you. They have to be familiar with you. We've talked about this on many videos in the past, but how many times does someone need to really see a brand or see an advertisement before they actually take action on it, right? It's because they slowly start to see it over time, and it slowly becomes more and more familiar, and it's comforting almost. We as human beings, we like what we know. I go home at night, I see my wife, same person I go home to every single night. It's familiar to me. It's comfortable. If I go home and, there's someone else there, I'm going to be like, oh, this is strange. This is uncomfortable. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like,
hi, Christian, I'm your new wife. Well, this took a left turn.
But like,
where are we?
Where are we? Back
here. Okay, reel back in.
But familiarity, right? Like, we like what we know, we like what we're used to, and
oh God. Okay, we're back. We're here.
We like what we know. We like what we're familiar with.
Yes.
And that works the same. The more people see your brand, your messaging, your advertisements, things like that, and the more ways they see it, by the way, the more likely they are to take action on it and want to do business with you. And
what do you think is that number, though? How many times do you think someone who's not familiar with your brand, how many times do you think they need to see it to take action?
I've seen all kinds of different numbers and articles and studies. And so I don't know, but like, it wouldn't surprise me if it was like 15 to 30 somewhere in there.
That's a lot higher than I was going to say.
Think about it, right? Think about there are businesses that advertise to me on, let's say, Facebook or YouTube or something like that. And I'll see ads of theirs for years and not do a thing. And then like 3 or 4 years later, I'm like, I don't even remember the first time I saw it. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen it, but I know I've seen it countless times, and I'll finally just buy something. It could be something stupid, a pair of sunglasses or something. But it happens to me all the time. And I do think about, I'm like, how many times did they hit me with this ad, to spend money to hit me with this ad, and came up empty? But the ad keeps coming. The ad keeps coming, and eventually it wears me down.
Right.
And I'm like,
right.
You know what? I need those purple sunglasses. I do. I do.
Yeah. I've been, so, I mentioned at the very start of the podcast, I took an ice bath today. So right now I'm just I buy ice, just fill my bathtub, get in my bathtub. But I've also been looking at actually buying just like a dedicated cold plunge. So something that's always cold, because it's time consuming. I've got to go get ice, got to haul it, dump it, fill my tub. It would be so nice to just have something that's already cold all the time that I could just get in and out of. I feel like it would save me a lot of time. So I've done a lot of research, and because I've been looking, I'm getting hammered with ads on all platforms, YouTube, Facebook. I'm seeing it in search ads. And there's some brands that you can tell are spending a lot more money to try to get me, because that I'm seeing their ads more. And to the point where there's some where I've gotten I feel like I've gotten closer to pull the trigger, or I've done more research on their brand because I'm seeing their brand more.
Yes. Familiarity.
Yes. I'm becoming more familiar with certain brands through that advertising.
This episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Guys, it is a fact that getting around other people that are chasing the same ambitions and destinations in their business as you is a great thing, and it can propel your business years ahead than not getting around people and networking and going to live events. The Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the premier event. Every year we hear year after year after year that it is the event that has the best content. So many events nowadays, they do a lot of pitching from the stage. They're really just there to sell you things. And if nothing more than that, they're just a bunch of vendors put together and they're just nothing but networking. There's no content. The summit is the best of both worlds, you guys. The summit puts together great, fantastic speakers from all ends of the industry, and also get you in a room with like-minded individuals from all over the country that are trying to build their business just like you. The summit this year is taking place in Salt Lake City from June 22nd to 24th at the Hilton Hotel. We still have tickets available. We'd love to have you come out for the event. We are over 50% sold out at the time of recording this, but get your ticket now while you can. This event will sell out, and we'd love to see you there in Salt Lake City.
I personally think that the average person needs at least probably close to 10 would be my guess. Now, I think there's so many variables in this, and like, what are you selling? If you're just selling a cup, a mug, probably doesn't, you don't need to be super familiar with someone to buy a cup, right? But if you're trying
Unless it's like a customized cup or something,
yeah, I mean, something crazy, yeah, a gold cup, right? Maybe, but
a gold cup.
But something expensive. There's expensive cups out there, but
yeah,
something like rolling your retirement into an investment, right? You're probably going to need more familiarity, more trust. It's probably going to take more touches, more viewpoints. The other thing that's just kind of popping in my head that I think is fascinating about this topic is when I see brands like Coca-Cola, who essentially don't need to advertise, right? There's no like when they're running an ad on TV, they're not running that ad in a sense of
capturing you.
Yes, they're not like, go to the store. Yeah. They're not like, Christian, go to the store and this Coca-Cola deal's going away next week. Like it's like a legacy brand pitch, right?
Yes.
It's more of just like, we're here, we're still here. Like, we want to be maybe a part of the conversation. We want you to see this ad and feel good. Like, I've always been fascinated with that type of approach with attracting people to your business and building that brand, because you're so far down the road that you're like, I don't really care if there's a call to action here. I'm just putting my business name out there.
I think that's such an interesting one too, because you think about them in particular. Anywhere a person goes, they're going to have the option, if they want to buy Coca-Cola. Any store, any movie theater, any restaurant, everywhere they go, the product is there, and it's available in bunches if you're very thirsty. I
would like one bunch of Coca-Cola, please.
So their business model, I think is almost like, we want to just keep planting the seeds in your mind about Coca-Cola and how great it would taste to open up a fresh Coca-Cola, ice cold, and drink it, and it's because everywhere you go, it's right there. It's available. It's not only available, it's front and center. I think there's two different types of situations when it comes to branding. I think there's more immediate branding opportunities, and then I think there's more long-term branding opportunities. And so if we dissect this a little bit, I think immediate branding opportunities are like if I'm running a Facebook ad and I'm trying to generate some leads, but it's branded, right? It's branded with
Yeah.
ESI. It's branded with our messaging. Maybe there's a video of me making a fool of myself, as some of you might say, but doing very well in the process. um, and you know, long term, that that might be more tailored to like an immediate gratification for the business, an immediate business to generate leads. But if I do that for a long enough period of time as well, people see the ads, they become more familiar. Like you have the me's out there that will see the ad for a super long period of time and never click. And then one day they might be like, okay, I'm going to click,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you have those types of things. You have things like mailers, right? That get people to call you. People like shout out to Becky and Keith Reel, for example. They've mastered that in their area. And they get an abundance of inbound people calling them every month. Branding, right? It's their pictures, it's their company, it's branding. But it's more immediate, but it's also long term. It's kind of a combination of two. Then you have like the long term effects, the things you do long term that continuously build your brand. I would say like a billboard is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Or
I was going to bring the billboard up because you have experience with that billboard, and I think that's an interesting branding play.
Yeah. And
to get into.
Now, did we get a ton of calls we had multiple billboards over the years. We don't have any right now, but maybe we should. New ESI brand for a little while.
Ooh.
Conversation after podcast.
No, right now we're getting into it.
Right now.
Right now.
I don't feel like we ever got a lot of calls specifically about the billboard, but people that I knew in my personal life, clients of ours, like an abundance of people, everyone it seemed like I ever knew, if I ever encountered them, would tell me they saw it. Family members, people I haven't, people from my parents' church I haven't seen in like 15 years. They're like, they see me and that's all they're thinking about. They immediately want to tell me they saw it, that kind of thing. And so I feel like some types of advertising, some types of marketing is almost designed to strengthen your brand and enhance your other types of marketing.
Yeah.
And that's the main purpose that it serves. I think if someone wanted to create a really good brand, I think a good strategy would be creating a mixture of, multiple different marketing types, billboards, running some ads, maybe doing some mailers, almost like blanketing where you are. Everywhere they look, they see you. That's a great way to brand yourself. Achieve this like omnipresence kind of feeling, to where it gets to the point where when they call you, they don't remember exactly where else they've seen you, but they know they've seen you, familiarity. But then you can definitely achieve that as well, or a piece to it with a grassroots approach too. Like we were talking about at the beginning, right? Building referral partners, forming relationships, having great customer experience, asking your clients and customers for referrals. All of it contributes into growing a great brand. And it's a long-term thing. It's a multi-year kind of thing. But once you achieve it, I mean, you have a business that is well-known, has a good reputation, and people will want to work with you. I mean, I think we have that with ESI.
For sure.
We get so much people that reach out to us to wanting to buy policies from us, but it comes from years of laying the foundation of that.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I think of too with this topic is messaging, because your logo has a message behind it. The name of your company has a message behind it. So like the message behind your brand, it's some of you, some of your brands out there, not to be mean, but sometimes I look at some of these brands and I'm just like, man, what's the message here? Like, what are you saying to your? So, and I wanted to give a shout out to Boomer Benefits, Danielle Kunkel Roberts.
Yeah.
What a great, like the brand. I'm
A
jealous.
shining example.
I know.
Shining
I'm
example.
jealous. I've been getting ads. For. I don't know if that's Meta's new spin, but I've been getting Boomer Benefits paid ads lately in my feed.
I have as well. I got a Matt Temin ad today.
Ooh, like a senior facing?
Yeah.
Matt Temin? Yeah.
Like all kinds of people that normally you'd never be targeted.
It
but
must
I
be
think
Meta.
this new targeting thing has changed the game. I think everyone's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. But with Boomer Benefits specifically, the name tells me everything. Boomer, right? That's obviously that stands out, right? We're talking about a name of a generation, right? Baby boomers, boomer. Okay, great. We're talking about the aging population, the seniors. Like boomer itself has a great message behind the demographic that the brand's trying to communicate to. And then benefit like insurance, again, really tells you what the brand is in the name of the company. So I think, and I'm obsessed with those types of details too. When it comes to building a brand, obviously you have something like Nike. Like, what is Nike? Like, that's not necessarily something that will tell you everything in the name. But I think the more concise you can make your branding, the more clear the messaging is, the easier it will be understood. And the easier it's understood, the easier it will grow. The other thing I was going to mention too that we're talking about earlier, you were talking about word of mouth. Yeah,
Can I add something to Nike? I'm sorry. Yeah. Hold that thought. I don't want you to lose it. But like, you think about Nike, right? Like Nike has almost become synonymous with sneakers.
Yes.
How often do you hear people say like, grab your Nikes? No, it's not like grab your shoes.
Yeah.
Grab a pair of Nikes. So their name has become so synonymous with all their advertising over the years, over decades. Advertising with the biggest athlete of all time, right? With Michael Jordan. All of that has allowed them to become so synonymous, right? With basketball shoes, sports shoes, that kind of thing, to where it's like you hear the term Nike, the first thing I think about is a pair of shoes.
I mean, I'm at my son's basketball practice yesterday and I'm looking at all these kids. Almost everything they're wearing is Nike. The shoes, the shirts, the shorts, headbands. It's like everything's I'm like, man, like they really captured it. The interesting part with that topic though is the brands that we call the actual service or product, we are calling. So Kleenex is another example. It's, hey, can you hand me that box of Kleenex? It's not Kleenex is the brand. It's just tissues. Tissues is what the product is.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Tylenol. It's not Tylenol is the brand. It's acetaminophen is the product. That's incredible. Think about the level of branding you have to achieve
to where people don't even know what it is. They think your product is what it is.
Your product is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
great branding. That's a great example. And I think I think good branding has to be strategic. I think it has to be, like Glenn said, like we just went through a rebrand. Why don't we walk the people through our process of figuring out this rebrand? So first thing, right, was new name. So let's start there, right?
Yeah.
We came up with the name. How did we come up with the name? How did we come up with the name?
We talked about a lot of different names. We went to the team. We talked to our internal team about, hey, we want to rebrand. This has been ongoing for like a year or two. If you've been working with us, you've seen some of the rebrand happen early on. We've had a lot of stuff going on. We finally really pulled the trigger here a few weeks ago, and we're going to be done soon with really a full rebrand. But yeah, the name, obviously that's step one. So we're kind of workshopping it with the team. We come up with some ideas. Again, I'm coming at the name from a perspective of how can we have really clear messaging to the audience? I want the senior audience to look at our name and be like, oh, I know what these guys do. I know what this company's all about. I know what this agency's all about. And Christian had grown the Everything Medicare podcast, and it's still a really big audience, and there's still content that we're putting out to the Everything Medicare podcast. And potentially I would have even played off Everything Medicare, but I'm very against using the name Medicare in your agency name, in your company name, because of what we're seeing with some of the rule changes. There's already been some state DOIs.
Long term, it's not a good idea.
Yeah. So, okay, Everything Medicare, but we want to brand to the Medicare audience without maybe using the Medicare name. So that's where Everything Senior Insurance, ESI, that's where, once I, Christian and I kind of bounced that around. We're like, what if we play off the Everything Medicare podcast, Everything Senior Insurance? It seemed like it fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think it was a very natural fit. And anytime we're going away from an established brand, if any of you are ever thinking about rebranding, like, you have to be very careful in how you position it, because you don't want your clients or your audience or your core circle of influence, whatever you might want to call it, to think that you're gone. It's a new company. You got bought out. Like, you don't want that to be planted in people's minds. You have to be very careful with your messaging. So when we put our messaging out there, we tried to be very, very clear that, one thing that was, a huge messaging point in this kind of like rebrand campaign we're putting out there now. I did a TV segment. We've been running ads for it, and the messaging behind it is, same trusted service, new name.
Yeah.
And I think, those types of things, you have to be very strategic. You have to think from every angle, even if it might seem dumb to you. That we were sending out a letter originally to our clients, and I read through it that the team came up with, and I didn't think it was clear enough that it was still us. Nothing was changing but our name. And, I was like, I think we need to dumb it down even more. I want a child to read this and think they changed their name. And that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's always going to be some people, if you're not just painfully clear about it, that they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, they're going to jump to all these crazy conclusions. Now, you might always have that regardless, no matter what. But if you can avoid it, let's say 10% of people see it and misconstrue it. Can you get that number down to 5%?
Yeah.
If you can, let's do that. Let's reword things, right? And I think messaging is so important from that perspective. It doesn't mean you have to psychoanalyze it to the point where, like, you just never get anything pushed out there. I'd rather push something out there that's wrong than nothing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a good idea to really take a little thought into the strategic messaging of your marketing and your promotion and your branding and that kind of stuff. Logo. Let's talk about logo.
Logo. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, logo. That was what I was going to say next.
Okay.
Logo.
So talk about the logo, right? Like, first lengthy process.
We almost went bankrupt as a company over the amount of time, energy, and effort that went into the logo design. I say that sarcastically, but we were looking at something brand new, right? New name, completely new logo. And we were very close to using an owl. I'll tell the audience.
I was like,
we were very close. I'm going to say it. I am going to say it. We were very close to using like a barn owl, I think is what it was. I don't remember the exact owl. I think we did have, which, again, messaging wise, brand wise, there is something there about like an owl is wise and an owl is old. Like it does kind of, there's some there was something there I kind of liked, but I think really happy with where we went. Yeah.
Yes, me too. I think at first we both thought, oh, that could work maybe. And then a couple days went by and we both kind of in unison were like, after thinking it over, I don't like that,
Yeah.
And, the old CBIS logo always had mountains in it, right? Because we're a
Yeah.
Utah company. I
Yeah.
remember when I was first creating that logo or having that logo created years ago, and I had this worry. Someone had planted in my mind that, we're trying to be a national business and there's not mountains everywhere. That's dumb.
Yeah.
That is just so dumb. The more I
Yeah.
thought about it, and over the years, right? Like, you could look at so many different logos of different things, and it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to cater to that. But the mountains always felt like a good representation. Is a good, aesthetically pleasing logo to look at. And so
There's a reason for it too. Like it's not just a random thing. Like it's mountains because the company's
yes.
headquarters is in Utah. Like it's not just a random thing. I mean, look at like Apple computers. That's kind of weird. It's like, what
Yeah.
does an Apple have to do with technology? Or it doesn't make that's just there's not even a correlation there.
Mhm. Yep.
But it's big.
So we went with mountains into the logo. There's a whole thing about the color scheme, everything like that. We finally settled on a logo, and I think we're pretty happy with the logo. In terms of
Yeah.
what things look like. But you look at the thought that went into every little detail, and that's because as somebody that has just, again, I believe this when I say this, right? I would rather put something out there than nothing at all. I would rather be marketing something than nothing at all. I got into an argument with someone about this in our marketing Facebook group a couple years ago because I posted something like this in the group, and she's like, so you're saying people should waste money on their advertising? I'm like, and I'm like, I guarantee you've never ran an ad, like just talking to you, like again, I'm not saying you run an ad that's like racially insensitive or like something obscene,
Right.
but I'd rather maybe not represent myself perfectly in terms of my communication
Right.
than do nothing at all. And I think the early years of our company is a representation
Yeah.
of that, right? Like, look how far we came with not perfect branding and maybe perfect logos.
Yep. 100%.
It's because just doing the work of the promotion is what matters the most. But if you can fine tune your process and fine tune the messaging of that kind of stuff, that's good too. There just has to be a balance. You have to get it out there. Can't take forever, but you want it to articulate the right messaging that you want to do going forward, right? So I think there's a balance there, but I'm a strong believer that I would so much rather be promoting myself, maybe not always in the perfect way, than not at all and trying to get it perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think action trumps thought. If you could spend 5 years trying to build the perfect logo, the perfect brand name, the perfect color scheme, like you can really freak out about all the details. But a lot of times, if the person who just launched quicker and then maybe made some changes as they went, they're going to win more
Yes.
than you trying to take all that time. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of just taking action. We're getting towards the top of the hour now, you guys, and I wanted to share my final thoughts with you regarding this topic, and then I'll ask Christian kind of what his final thoughts are. But I really enjoyed talking about branding. It's something I think Christian and I both stress a lot about with our multitude of brands that we have at ESI, since we are kind of a small insurance conglomerate at this point. One thing that I was going to mention earlier, so NPS was a big deal when I was working at Sears way back in the day. And if you don't know what NPS is, it's Net Promoter Score. And what they essentially, these big brands, these big retail brands specific, and I still see it today though. Like I saw it, my kid was playing Fortnite and the same thing popped up once. So I know this is still being utilized by today's companies, but they've essentially boiled it all down to one question. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer us to someone else? And what I can tell you, when I was working at Sears way back in the day, the way they scored these systems was 1 to 7 was a negative. So if they didn't give you an 8, 9, or 10, they looked at it as that person's most likely not going to refer you business. They're not going to refer people to you. If you got an 8, it was neutral. And again, I don't know if this was just kind of how Sears was looking at it, but it was like an 8 was like, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but it's like a 0. And then a 9 or a 10 was, okay, they're happy. They had a positive interaction with the brand. They're going to refer people to you. And I know there's been some big brands, Tom's Shoes as an example. Tom's, he essentially, that was like his sole focus. I think Tesla's another big example of this. Is Tesla never really went out and ran a bunch of paid ads. Like, they really focused on word of mouth. And to have a super successful word of mouth campaign and to have those referrals. Yeah. And Elon.
I think like Elon's the face of that brand, right? Like,
yeah.
If you didn't have such a bombastic CEO, would people know the company as well?
Bombastic. What a word. Yeah. So, I say all of that to say, having a really strong brand can lead to referrals, and, not saying you have to run out and try to do net promoter scores, NPSs with like everybody, but that's the idea. It's more, I'm trying to give you guys the mindset of how can you give your clients an experience, whether that's through marketing messaging or actually, your actual interactions, the sales process, whatever your system is. But you should be thinking long-term here in the sense of, how can this be a 9 or 10? How can I get referrals? How can I get them thinking my brand before they're thinking of anything else? Just like we mentioned earlier, instead of a tissue, I'm thinking Kleenex. Like that's like the top gold standard. That's like the platinum diamond standard of branding, right? You have taken over the product category. That is incredible. But yeah, some of my final thoughts. I love this topic. Christian, branding and attracting business to you. Final thoughts.
I think branding is a long-term play, right? I think there's so many people that I see that are struggling to keep their doors open of their business.
Yeah.
And they fully attack branding with all of their efforts and all of their marketing. And I think that's the wrong play. I really do. I think branding should be top of mind in terms of a long-term focus, but you also need things that bring in business right now to keep you running, right? And I think that's what people should understand with branding. I think it should always be top of mind in everything that you're doing, always be branding, right? All your messaging, all your advertisements, everything you possibly can do, you should brand, and as well as possible. But understand it's going to take a long period of time, because for people to get that familiarity with you, it's going to take a lot of repetition and seeing your name, seeing your logo, seeing your messaging over and over and over again in multiple different ways. So understand that, but it should be a part of your business. I think on the flip side, people that, do nothing but buy leads, and like they're just doing all this generic marketing. I don't think that's the answer either. Right.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of leads. I love leads, but if you're not having any branding going on in your business, you're very replaceable with your clients. Yep. And so that's my final thoughts, guys. Thank you everybody for watching all the way to the end. And if you're on a platform that allows you to do so, if you made it this far, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review on if you enjoy the show, and we'll be back with you on the next episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. Thanks for watching, everybody. And here's to ultra mega success and massive success and abundance for you guys. Thanks, everybody.
Happy selling.